I discovered I was a Liberal when I was at university. So I'd already joined the Army Reserves and I went back after I deferred from uni to Curtin University, and I got involved in the University Liberal Club and also the Young Liberals, and it interested me. I wasn't quite sure at the time why, because I'd come from a Labor family. I surprised my parents greatly on two fronts. The first was when I joined the Army Reserves, and the second was when I joined the Liberal Party. But there was no one prouder in the end than my parents by the fact that I joined the Army and have had an amazing career with the Army. But also over the years my parents have become staunch Liberals as well. Grew up in the early 80s, finished school, didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life, and so I joined the Army Reserves as an officer cadet, and that experience taught me a great deal in life. It was incredibly hard as a 19-year-old officer cadet, particularly in those days. But what it did teach me is the resilience that I had within me, and it also taught me the value of service and of allegiance to our country. These are qualities that have stood me in very good stead now in politics, in the Liberal Party, and also now in the Senate. One of the things I've learnt over the course of my time in politics, but also in the military, is that politics is about two things. It's about being compassionate to those who need your compassion, and there are many people in life who do, but it is also about finding strength and being very strong and resolute against whether terrorists, criminals and people who would exploit our compassion in life, and also getting the strength to implement the things we need to in government, which is never easy. As a Liberal, I see myself as a Menzian Liberal. I have aspects of both traditions that we're custodians of. I am very economically conservative, and also I have a great deal of commitment to strength in government, to institutions, to the monarchy and to our constitution. But that said, I also believe in individual liberties and individual freedoms, and so in that sense I think I'm a little bit of both. And I think I know that because I have the dries in our party who call me wet and the wets who call me dry, so I think I must have the balance about right. As a Liberal, I know democracy can never ever be taken for granted, and that is just as much the case here as it is overseas. And for a strong democracy, we need strong democratic institutions. So I now work as a senator on strengthening our own internal democratic institutions and the trust that Australians have in their elected representatives. But I've also had the great pleasure for many years of working with men, and particularly women, in emerging and troubled democracies to help them find their voices in politics, work out how to communicate their messages, but also how to strengthen their own democratic institutions, and that is very rewarding. I think we're at a turning point in the history of our democracy, and we seem to have forgotten to a great extent what it takes to retain our democratic freedoms of thought, worship, speech, association, and instead we're focusing more on legislated rights, and that is not a good thing for our democracy. So it is time to start thinking about how do we preserve our democratic freedoms, because for every legislated right we introduce, we're reducing a democratic freedom of somebody else in our country. So it is the time now to make sure that we refocus on what makes our country great, what our men and women for over 100 years have fought and died for and continue to do so.